Today's video, we're going to talk about targeting versus observation setting for search campaigns that you're running on your Google Ads account and what the difference for search campaigns. This is a setting here, targeting or observation, that's normally talked about as it comes to display campaigns, running ads, in other words, outside of google.com, okay? But it does also apply to search campaigns. If you go into your audience menu, you can see this option there. When I went ahead and tried to look for the documentation on this from Google, there is no official documentation what the difference is. So therefore, I decided to make a video clearing the air on this, and after doing some testing on this to see what the two different choices on this particular option will do for you in your campaigns. In short, both of them basically do the same thing, and it'll allow you to get more results out of your ad campaign if you're in a certain situation where you really need audiences to narrow down the targeting, which yes, there is a way to do that. I'm going to talk about the combo method that I use on certain campaigns and a case study where we actually were able to use this before. So stay to the end of the video for that. But also, if you want to get more out of your campaigns, so by doubling down on certain groups of people that are searching for your keywords, such as somebody who hit your shopping cart already but did not purchase, which could be its own defined audience, or whether it's somebody who's been to your site and spent over 2 minutes on the site before, which you can also do. So I'll go over that and more on today's video. But before we go into the content, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability up front. Basically, in excess of the management fee, we do not charge our clients fees, and we're the only one up front, and we're the only ones doing that out there in the world that runs a PPC firm, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that we're sharing on today's video with you here. So with that said, getting into the content, on a display campaign, the targeting versus observation setting, if you go into the audience menu, literally you open up your campaign, click on audiences, it will be there for you to be able to see right away. Normally this setting, which is also on a display campaign, if you go ahead and open your display campaign, assuming you have one, and you go to audiences and your audience targeting, that targeting versus observation will still be there as well. And what that actually does for a display campaign is the following. Even though we're not talking about display campaigns here, and there's other videos that talk about targeting versus observation for the display campaigns, including one I've made as well, that you can search from my channel homepage. But basically for display campaigns, targeting itself, if you choose that choice, it'll do for your display campaign is it'll make sure the user must match the audience itself in order for the ad to show. So in other words, if you are targeting fast food eaters as an audience with your display campaign and you have your audience targeting versus observation setting set as targeting, what's going to happen, assuming you have, the big part of where this comes in is when you have more than one targeting option. So let's say you're targeting people on a particular website domain, but you're also targeting the fast food users or fast food eaters. If you have targeting versus observation set up, what it'll do is it'll make sure you can only advertise on that site if a person's eating fast food as well. That being the main thing there. If you're talking about keyword targeting, what I used to do all the time back in the day, we do it less now because it's less effective, but still do it. We'll target keywords. So if somebody's on a particular website and we want to advertise on one web page of that website because it's about our competitor going out of business or whatever that ranks highly in Google, we'll actually, and we see a banner ad there that we can run a banner ad on that web page, we'll target that website as a whole, and then we'll target keywords that are specific to that web page we want to be on in order to only advertise on that one web page. And if you have the targeting settings set up, then you can actually do it. All right. Now, on the other hand, if you're talking about observances or observation versus targeting, this setting does basically the opposite, which is it does not narrow your audience targeting options when you select one particular targeting option. So when you have targeting set up, assume it's an and situation. So the user must be this, and this, and this. And if they're all three of these things, if you have three targeting settings set up, then your ad could trigger. Whereas with observation, it just simply says, as long as a user's any one of these three things, the ad could show up. So if you have a website targeted that you want your ad to show up on, and you have fast food users, going back to my previous example, the ad will show if it's a fast food, any random website, but it'll also show your ad if the user's on that particular website that you've selected as well. So it's an or scenario, this or this or this versus targeting this and this and this and this. So with that said, going into what we're talking about in today's video specifically, which is search campaigns. The two settings when you go into the audience menu, targeting versus observation, are actually, they're doing the same exact thing. If you go into Google's documentation, it actually says they recommend for search campaigns the observance option, going with the observance option, not targeting. But they don't explain why. They don't even explain what a situation would be where you would use targeting, or what the differences between targeting or observation is, like I said, which is why I made this video here. Now, you may say, why the hell do they even have both of those options there if there's no situation where they can even explain you would use targeting? And it doesn't really make sense why you would have a targeting on there, given that usually with a search campaign, you're going to target keywords, right? And you wouldn't want to target that keyword and have them be on an audience. I could understand where you would do that, but most people would not understand it. And the reality is, I just think they made it, they were lazy. They did not want to update their user interface. And the reason for that, I say that is because observance itself does the same thing the targeting option does. Okay? So if the observation option would only let you see how, which is why you use it on display campaigns, see how it converts. So later on, you can decide to put a bid adjustment for people that match that audience. If they had that on the search campaigns itself, you could see how certain audiences convert while they're searching for your keywords and whether they convert or not after a period of time running that search campaign. That would make sense. And it would make sense with the targeting option that it would be nice if you could just select the targeting option with that search campaign and have it to where any of those audiences, then, if they're searching for your keyword and they're not on one of those audiences as well, fast food eater, religious, whatever, that the ad wouldn't show, because there's quite a bit of different situations where I have, and that I could think of basically, where you would want that kind of thing, such as if you were running a campaign to promote software and you want business users, but you have business and consumer users, and you would want the search campaign to only show up for business users, you could have the audience set up to target business users, and then effectively make sure that people who search for your keywords that are not a business user wouldn't be able to see your ads. That would be one example. That would be one situation where you would use targeting over observation, and where it would actually make sense if both of them did pretty much what they do on display campaigns. They do the same thing on search campaigns, and I know that because we use observation by default when we add audiences to a search campaign. And with the bid adjustment and with it set up with observance, the cost per click will go up over the average cost per click of that search campaign. The cost per click on those audiences, even while those audiences were set up and under the audience menu, it was set up as observance or observances, the cost per click's higher. And let's say if the cost per click was $5 a click, and we added a 40% bid adjustment on the remarketing audience we had there. Well, if they were on that remarketing audience, the cost per click was like $7, $8. So basically the bid adjustment on the audience did what it was supposed to do, even though the campaign targeting was set up with the audience or the observance setting. We don't need to use targeting to do a bid adjustment on the audience level like that, in other words. Now, some other things to mention here though, as it comes to search campaigns and this particular option on your search campaign under the audience menu. If you add audiences, which you should, at the very least, you should be adding remarketing audiences to your audience menu on your search campaigns, because somebody who's been to your site before is going to convert at a higher rate than somebody who hasn't been to your site, substantially more, 2 or 3 times the rate. And so you would have at least a 40, if not a 100% bid adjustment for somebody who's been to your site before, so that when somebody searches for your keyword red shoes, assuming you sell red shoes and are bidding on that keyword, that you damn well are going to show up at the top of Google for that person who's been to your site versus getting accidentally outbid by your competitor, not showing up and then not getting the sale, knowing that they're going to convert twice as well. So it's fine to bid twice as much per click because you're still going to get a sale at the target ROI that you're looking for, which you may say, oh, it's not worth it to bid more because I don't want to have to pay twice to get the customer on a second click on our ad. You could think that way. The reality is with Google and how much ad space the ads take up on the top of Google, and you expect them to scroll all the way through that to find your organic listing, assuming there's 4 people showing up for your brand terms, you're going to get some sales siphoned off. And that's just the way that it is. So I'm not going to be super greedy about it. If Google wants me to pay a second time to lock down that customer, I'm going to do it because I'm still going to make a good margin on the customer either way. Maybe not quite as good, but still I'm going to get it versus losing it to the competitor. You could obviously have your own opinion about that, but that's what I'm going to do. And for that matter, it's the whole debate about brand keywords as well. Do I bid on them? Do I not? If there's 4 ads at the top of Google and you have a brand name that's kind of hard to remember, you want to do brand keywords because your competitors will steal your customers, and people can't remember how to spell your brand name. They're not going to be able to find you easily, which is why you do brand terms. But in the situation that you're running search campaigns, outside of brand searches even, if somebody's typing in red shoes, you want to make sure you're always at the top if they've been to your site. And if you bid at plus 100%, you're effectively probably every single time going to outbid all the people also bidding on red shoes by default. And so you will always show for people that have been to your site at least once versus normally you may show, you may not, but that's fine because you're looking for a certain target cost per conversion, if you will. And you want Google to actually filter out the traffic that's not going to convert well and at least at the cost per conversion you're looking for from your campaign. Before I get into what these things are here to also know about this setting, one thing to keep in mind is if you're not sure what to do with this, you can always leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. Or if you would like, you can have a private conversation. You can reach out and talk to me at guaranteedppc.com. I could tell you all the things that you could do to raise the profitability of your ads up front and what we would charge for that once we get the ball rolling, what we could guarantee for you, or if you want to get on a 30-minute coaching call, we can do that as well. I've been starting to do that with you guys watching the channel and going over your business, your pricing strategy, all that stuff, and let you know what the bottleneck is that you're having. Maybe it's your ads, maybe it's something else. As a side, we also been selling ad templates to people. If we've already just worked in your niche before, and we've worked in over 100 plus niches in the last 10 plus years of running this advertising firm now, if we have, we can tell you what results we got in your niche and then what we would charge for the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates that work for your niche market already. Generally speaking, people don't understand the value in the templates, whereas everybody's interested in them. We don't sell them for 5 cents here because if everybody started using the template, then it would be ineffective. But the amount of time and money you're going to waste trying to figure out what we figured out over years, split testing this and that and everything else, just to get your hand on the winning version of the template that works for your market, you're saving $100,000 worth of testing on that. And so you should at least find out if we've already worked in your space because we already have the winning ironclad version of it. And you just got to copy paste that into your account. And of course, we could tell you what you're going to get with it up front because we already know the numbers. So if you're interested in that, you can also let me know. We got people using these templates to literally start other businesses from scratch, selling leads, doing drop shipping, whatever. As long as you're in a different geographic area than our client or past client, you can use the templates. So with that said, though, getting back to what I was saying here, the targeting versus observation on search campaigns, now that it's doing the same thing, regardless of which one you choose, neither restrict the audience by default. So it doesn't restrict anything. It is there to add to, per se, which it doesn't really do that. And I'll explain in a moment why. But the other thing to mention is they both allow you to monitor the audience. So they both give you the observance feature that you would normally use on display campaigns with the observation setting. So you can see an audience that you add, how well it converts or doesn't convert. Respectively with that, you can add like 500 different audiences in there, random ones, stuff that you would never think applies to your market, religious, non-religious, fast food, not fast food eaters, stuff like that, and just see how everything shakes out. And you might find out some weird stuff like religious people convert at half the rate as everybody else. And so I can add a negative 50% bid adjustment there when I do that. Or you may find out that I have a really bad click fraud problem. And when I add all these audiences, I can see the audiences that have all the click fraud are these. So I'll just get rid of them at negative 90% bid adjustment on those audiences, which I've seen people do before when they had no other options to get rid of click fraud. And then the third thing to mention here is both will allow you to increase or decrease your bid. So just like what the targeting feature on a display campaign or targeting option on a display campaign would do for you, here you can also use it to do bid adjustments up or down, ultimately. So whether something converts less than average or converts above average, and it would be below or above or below because ultimately, usually the campaign, if you're using smart bidding, like I always suggest on this channel, work the best and get you the most return on your investment. In basically every case, 99% of the time, you will figure out what you're willing to pay for a conversion, set this campaign up to do that eventually, and then ultimately from there, you got what you want. However, and these bid adjustments, by the way, will only work on a manual bidding campaign. If you are using manual bidding, then you can actually set up your bidding then to go up or down and use what is called a bid adjustment formula to decide how much your bid should be above your target cost per conversion or below. And then you can then ultimately hone in more and more return on your investment, the more data that you get on your users on who's converting and who's not. Now, smart bidding by default will typically do this in the background, whereas you can't see it per se. You can use smart bidding and have the audiences there and then collect the data on these different audiences, but the bid adjustments on them won't necessarily work per se because smart bidding, for the most part anymore, it's just the device bid adjustments that will work. And the other bid adjustments, they work a little bit. It's like a signal to Google, but it's not a hard on or off. You can do the bid adjustment there, but there's no guarantee that Google's going to actually use it, so to say. And then the final thing I wanted to mention here was both of these targeting and observation settings on a search campaign will allow you to restrict the campaign targeting with this so-called combo method that I was talking about. So ultimately, there are some situations where your search campaigns, you do not want to run at all if a person fits a certain criteria. We had a construction software company that only needed big construction companies using their software. The problem is most construction companies aren't big. Like 95% of them aren't big. There's two guys in a truck and all this stuff. They're also though looking for software for their construction companies. So we ran a campaign targeting construction software like you would normally think. And at first it was like, we're high-fiving each other. Yeah, awesome. We were getting like 10 leads a day. The cost per lead was like $50. But the reality is the construction software for construction companies, it's hard for people to make money on small companies. They don't have very much money. They require tons of customer service. It's less competitive then as a result. But more importantly, we weren't getting the type of leads that we need that will be able to pay thousands a month for a software or be willing to, we'll just say. So we were stuck. Like, how are we going to run this search campaign and get it to work? Well, with that said, it was the audience level targeting that was able to help us out. Adding in the audiences and then assigning negative bid adjustments to the certain audiences that were added to the campaigns would get people who that had these features weeded out of the campaign completely. Not only that, but adding a positive bid adjustment on traits that more closely matched with users who are running or a key manager at a big company itself as well. So with that situation, it really did help make the campaign feasible, so to say. There are some situations where, like I said, you're going to find people who normally buy, give you another situation here. People that normally buy your product are buying it because they're buying it as a gift. And they normally convert much more if they're buying it for a gift versus if they're not buying it for a gift. Or at least if they're not looking to buy it for a gift, then they're probably browsing and they're not looking for a gift. Jewelry being one particular scenario that I can mention here where this was the case. And in that particular situation, we added audiences where people are looking for gifts, and that converted so much more. And so basically, we were able to here's what the combo method is and why I call it the combo method. So what you do in this situation, like what we had with this particular client, is you actually set the keyword bids much lower as a whole. We're talking like 90% lower than what you started out with. You have to have a manual bidding campaign, obviously, to do this. But then you have the audiences that are set up to track people that are looking to buy gifts or in market for a gift, and do a plus 900% bid adjustment on those. Reduce the bids on the keywords themselves by 90%, and then increase the bid on the audience by 900%. And so effectively, what we've done is turn this campaign where the targeting option works not like it should, where it would be ideal that, like with a display campaign, unless somebody's on this audience, the ad will not show up for this keyword. We effectively done it because our bid's too low to get shown unless they're on this audience. And now if they're on this audience, they can actually show for this keyword. So now we got people that are looking for a gift to actually see our ad when they're typing in wedding rings, gold bands, stuff like that. And when they're not looking for a gift, they're not going to show. So that weeds out all the people that just looky-loos, tire kickers. They want to see interesting photos using our website for general research. So that's the combo method right there, and worked beautifully in that case. And we use it time and time occasionally when you basically got keywords that have your buyers, but there's a part of the keyword traffic that isn't converting, and it's more than like 10-20%. It's more like half or 3/4 to weed out the half or the 3/4 that don't convert. So your campaign is either going to be, it'll be feasible to run, that is, you're getting a net positive return on your ad spend, or you're stuck and you're not satisfied with the return you got, and it'll help you scale, because it's hard to scale when, you can use smart bidding and the algorithm's going to figure out where that 1/3 of the traffic that is profitable, but it's going to figure it out slowly. Whereas if you would go with manual bidding, you'll weed it out right away, and then you can scale better and quicker and easier, because right away then the part that is working, right away increase your bids so you get a lot more search impression share and so forth, and you end up scaling quicker. So with all that said, if you like these advanced strategies like I just have mentioned here, you should definitely subscribe to this channel, because I got tons of other information like this about how to run Google search campaigns, as well as Facebook ads, display ads, all this better than your competition. And anymore, that's really what you're up against. Do you have an edge on your competition? All the techniques that I talk about on this channel is stuff that I figured out over 20 years running ads, and over 10 years running this advertising agency where it's the only thing I do. And I give it to you here for free. And most of the information you're going to find online about how to make ads work for your business is given to you by people who don't run any ads, believe it or not, or they run a couple ads. They really don't know what they're doing. I spend 40 hours a week just doing ad strategy at our firm to find out what works. And that's why I'm able to give so much information on this channel. And I manage about 50 accounts at any given time, roughly speaking, plus or minus, in terms of the strategy specifically, the strategy side of things. So you're getting real raw information here. And so if you really want to make yourself a millionaire or multi-millionaire running ads for your business, you want to subscribe and watch the information on this channel to do it. You can also check out my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. The blog has other great information on how to use the strategies we're using at our firm to guarantee results for our clients that we already know about, to use them for yourself. So with that said, though, ultimately, if you're wondering how much extra money you can make with this setting and doing things like I mentioned, it's substantial if you are in a market where not everybody searching for your keywords are a good candidate. And in that situation, you can make quite a bit more. We sold ladies clothing before and had used a method like I talked about before. We had 500 or so audiences in the campaign audience menu to see what converts, what doesn't convert, and then did bid adjustments on all the different levels. We had actually a search campaign we were trying to scale up, and it was scaling slowly on smart bidding, so we switched it over to manual bidding, and we were able to get a lot more success with it in general once we started to see the trends of who's buying, who's not buying, and understanding on a level of male versus female, income level targeting, and so on and so forth, how things are working. With that said, how much more ROI were we able to get on a search campaign utilizing the audiences versus not? Well, we were able to get a similar ROI. We needed to get at least a 250% ROAS on our campaign in order to scale it. We were already getting that with manual bidding, but when we switched over to doing manual bid adjustments on all the audience levels like that, we were able to scale a lot quicker. So it's not going to be everything, but you can scale quicker. That's the main benefit of doing that. And then with the construction software company, we weren't able to get the campaigns working at all unless we were able to use the audiences to our advantage. So there's a lot of markets where just running your campaigns at all is not feasible. It's not profitable unless you're able to do it. So that should be some encouragement for you to be able to utilize these features for yourself. And with that said, I'm going to wrap everything up with that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said search campaign was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.